Anyway, listen, we should talk about last night's match, probably.
Yeah.
0-0. Canada down to 10 men for 84 plus minutes. But that is 3 straight games, scoreless. Is that becoming a thing, Jimmy, or do you just dismiss last night because they're playing down a man? You can't really expect any attack anyway.
Yeah, you got to dismiss it. I mean, they had a couple of good chances. Tani should have scored that, obviously, right? If Tani, I think it was Jonathan David that was on the end of that. That ball would have been slotted into the back of the net because I think with Jonathan David, he doesn't panic. He's just cool and calm, just used to that situation where I think Tani was a reaction. It was more of just get on the end and just direct it on goal, and it ends up hitting the keeper. Going a man down, playing against a team like Ecuador, who actually finished second in CONMEBOL with only conceding 5 goals in 18 matches is absolutely, it's ridiculous, which goes to show you that they don't give up many chances. They're a team that's disciplined and well organized. And for us to create a couple of chances being 10 men down it's remarkable. It really is. It just goes to show you where this team is at. And I think if it was 11v11, I think the game would have been completely different because I think we could have been more on the front foot than what we were. But even then, our press was very good. I thought we were very, very organized. The way that we defended, and especially in that middle third, we didn't go man to man. We ended up marking space. Now, marking space limits those threaded passes. And you could see at times Rodriguez, Valencia, Vite were coming into certain areas. And what they try to do is they try to get close to a man and then pull an individual out to create space. And our guys weren't biting. They weren't biting at all. They were just like, no, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going to mark. And they forced the opposition to the outside to set up traps to win the ball and get possession and spring forward. So when you're saying, is it concern? No, I don't think it's a concern because I do think we will create these opportunities going forward because I think mentally they're very, very strong. They will get chances, but the only issue is that we have to be more clinical than what we were. When you're playing against top opposition and you get those chances, and then going into a World Cup, you might only get 1 chance in a match, or it might get 2, and those chances you have to finish. You have to finish. And, that was a prime example of it was last night. We had that one great opportunity. And if you convert that, you end up winning the match 1-0. And that's what the World Cup's going to be when you play against great teams. You get one opportunity and you have to put it in the back of the net.
I want to ask you something, Jimmy. Do you think that Tani is ever going to be that guy that gets that one opportunity, whether you're a player down or you're playing against a great opponent and you're well matched and you get that glimmer of light and you get in there and you get an opportunity? Do you think he's ever going to be that guy? I mean, Jesse talked about him having the pole position to play with Jonathan David, but is he ever going to be a guy at the international level who's going to get you those goals when you get that one opportunity?
Truthfully, I don't think so, Dubs. I don't. If I was said it, I think Tani needs 8 chances to score 1. But you can't take anything away from him because he does find himself in good spaces. Even at that opportunity when Richie gets in behind, he actually is probably maybe 15 yards behind Jonathan David, and he turns on the jets and gets into that area and passes Jonathan David, passes his the opposition and gets into that area, but he just couldn't finish. He's a striker that works hard. He'll work the back line. He's great at starting that press. He can close down. He can be a handful for defenders. But he's just, the one thing that he's missing is being that kind of clinical, prolific goal scorer. So I mean, you gotta give or take, I guess, sometimes, right? When it comes to a striker, are you going to be that striker that's going to work the back line and press and have bags of energy the way that this Canadian side wants to play, or are you going to be that guy that is missing that, but a fox in the box? And I don't think he's going to be that prolific goal scorer, you know, and in any league where I think he's going to get, you know, 18, 20 goals a season.
But this team's not ever going to be, you know, a huge successful team that's going to, you know, cruise through World Cups to late phases, scoring tons of goals. They got to become this defensive powerhouse. That's teams like Canada have to do that. Jesse Moss is joking post-match. He was talking to Kevin Blue and saying that I'm a coach that's known for winning and losing games 4-3. And now we've given up 5 shots on goal in the last 5 games. We're becoming they become this defensive beast. And last night, Dubs, we're seeing the 11s come out. We're seeing Kamal Miller and Joel Waterman as the center backs, thinking, "Ooh, this might be interesting." Turns out they played really well. And once again, Canada, as much as they can't score and create very much, which is something, they're tough to score against. Now, Ecuador's not a great attacking team. Jimmy mentioned the World Cup qualifying and how they conceded so few goals. Didn't score many goals either. I think 14 and 18 games, but still, that's 3 straight clean sheets. Okay, haven't scored goals, haven't conceded either.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, we talked about it pregame in our little hit, is that I thought it was perhaps an opportunity for one of those 2 guys, disappointingly, to play themselves out of contention for the future of the men's national team. And that's maybe a really cynical look at putting Miller and Waterman together. But like for me, it evoked really great memories of covering CF Montreal a couple of years ago, right? Like those guys have an understanding, and it's a great partnership between the 2 of them. And I thought occasionally, aside from the 2 big chances that Ecuador had, we still out XG'd them because of that opportunity with Tani. We kept them peripheral, as Jimmy said, but it did give me pause occasionally where the strikers, whether it was Valencia or otherwise, were finding that seam between the 2 of them and making that blindside run behind Miller. There was one opportunity in the first half, remember, where people were like, did that go in? Like we were unsure based on, I think some of the Ecuadorian fans thought it went in, but it like missed wide on the right. But it was that run from the left in behind, like on the blind spot of Miller, in behind, perfectly timed ball that was slipped in. And there was another one in the second half like that. But Kamal Miller, in his post-game comments, was talking about the work of everybody around them. So they were winning the first balls. They were staying really well connected and disciplined as that center back duo. But it was the professional performance and the winning of those second balls by everybody, whether it was Eustachio and Kone in front of them, screening the back line, or just collectively how they defended. And I said to you, Sharms, while we were watching, and I said, this is like night and day compared to their 10-player performance versus Guatemala. And that is coaching, that's tactics, but it's also the players taking a step and understanding how to adapt in game. And sure, like nobody wants to have to adapt after 6 minutes when a player is sent off. But I just think you saw the nuance, you saw a more pragmatic approach, a more connected and knitted together team where they sat in their shape and they were really difficult to break down. But you also saw, depending whether they were going a little bit higher, because they were still applying the press, but then that was maybe like a 4-4-1, a little bit higher up the pitch in the middle third. Sometimes it was a 4-2-3. Sometimes it was a 4-3-2, or occasionally they sat even back when they were defending in their own third as a 4-4-1. So I think, and again, that's very fluid and depending on what the opponent's doing, they just looked more confident, especially out of possession, which you know you're going to be when you're a player down. But back to that center back duo and that partnership, I think good for Kamal Miller, a guy who's been out of the program for so long. I think you've got a left boot. I think Jimmy has talked about the fact, you know, like that doesn't really matter. We're talking about Alfie Jones, more of a right-footed guy, right foot dominant, but he can play with both feet. He's a ball-playing center back. I think Kamal Miller is giving Jesse Marsch headaches maybe at this point. I mean, yes, it's a particular circumstance in the way that the game unfolded, but I think the 2 of them there did themselves favors, you know, like when you're projecting forward. And I think that speaks to the depth of this program and also the amount of players who are going to be in the mix for that 26-player roster.
You know what, Dubs, I think that, you know, when you looked at Miller and Waterman last night, they had a very, very good match, both of them. but I think both of them are fighting for that position of 5 and 6 on the roster for that center back position. Because if Alfie Jones comes in and he is the guy that they're saying, very mature, experienced. They mentioned how he was quite quick. He's used to playing the way that Jesse Marsch wants to play because he's played under managers that have played very similar style. I think you're looking at Cornelius, Bombito, DeFruge role, and it could be Alfie Jones, and it's that 5th spot maybe in that center back position, which would be Waterman and Miller. And I think both of them had a very good game, and I think that's the position that those two are fighting for at the moment.
If that's the case, you're fighting for 5 or 6, then the off-field behavior, how you are, vibe is probably as important as your on pitch, because you're not going to play. You're going to be a squad member, and they're both good guys. Everyone loves Joel Waterman. He's
he's a great guy. I love Joel.
Yeah, he's a guy that is almost like that perfect backup because he'll just bring the light vibes to the squad. I don't know Kamal quite as well, but that's kind of what you're fighting for at that point. Obviously, you need to play the game, but you're not going to see many minutes at a World Cup unless everything goes horribly wrong. So that's interesting.
No, you're right in what you're saying, Sharms. But then there is going to kind of be that reserve list as well. Going into the World Cup, you might have your roster that you want. Obviously, things happen. Players get injured, or some guys fail to make the trip, and you've got to call out in other players. And I think Joel or Kamal would probably be on that list, to be fair.
But they're both doing the right things, right? Just finish up on that. And we know what Jones can do. We haven't yet seen him in a Canadian kit. And we might be getting ahead of ourselves in terms of Moise Bombito and when he's expected to be back. He might not be ready for the World Cup.
Yeah, we're assuming, aren't we? We're assuming that he's back, but that's a broken leg. Let's not go there, Dubs.
Well, I'm just being realistic, right?
It's a Friday before the NSL championship game. Dubs is bringing us down.
He's one of the most important players, though. Let's not kid ourselves.
And the issue,
such a great player.
And what gave me pause with that pairing was the lack of pace. I mean, we're never going to have those two starting together, but I mean that's what Cornelius and Bombito give you, is just that top level world-class pace and cover. To make up for any little mistake, whether it's happening in front of you or it's happening in your own defensive third. And against the best teams, you're going to get punished, but you can make up for it because you have those burners and they can make up the ground. Well,
of note, Jesse Marsch mentioned in the press conference last night that Richie was going to be his next option at centre back because Derek Cornelius has a bit of a knock. He said he could have played if it was a big game, but Richie was about to play centre back. Okay. We got to talk about Richie Laryea. He was the best player on the pitch last night. Again,
Swiss Army knife, too.
Swiss Army,
right?
Yeah, exactly, and a psychopath.
In the best sense,
he's got
the Footy Prime knife
behind that.
Yes.
Be careful, James. Be careful. But he is a psychopath, but he's strategic with it. He's like, I've got a new name for him, Dexter. I'm going to start calling Richie Dexter because Dexter is a psychopath. He murders people, but he does it for a good reason. And he's very careful when he does it. Doesn't go too far to get caught. Right? So I think we should start calling Richie Laryea Dexter. Okay? I'm starting it now because that's what he is. He is an absolute piece of work out there.
Do you know what?
That takes away, Jimmy, from his ability and his pace and his covering.
I love Richie. I love him as a human. I love him as a player, and I'm so glad he's on this Canadian team. And you have to find a spot for Richie. And and I'll tell you this: it was going through my head as I was watching the game, and I'm thinking, if I played against a guy like this, I was thinking how I would line up Richie Laryea to go through him in a match playing against him, because he just drives you crazy. And I'm thinking, if I was playing, this guy would drive me absolutely mental and just wind me up like a tetherball. And the whole time I'm thinking, how do I line him up? How would I go through him? But I'm thinking, there's probably everybody that plays against Richie is thinking the exact same thing.
Right.
How do I get at this guy? Because he can just wind up everybody. And I'm so glad that he's playing on this Canadian team. And he's one of those players where you love to have him on your side, but you hate to play against this guy. You'd hate to play against him. And I don't think how calm you are as a player and how controlled you are mentally, he would still get under your skin and you'd still want to smash him.
Mm-hmm.
He's a heartbeat, Dubs.
Yeah, he is. And I don't like Dexter. I think we should go with like the multiple personalities. So he's got Richmond and he's got Richie.
Oh,
and then
Richmond
like depending, yeah.
That's not bad.
On the pitch, off the pitch, when he's like fired up, eyes bugging out.
So you're going more Ted Bundy. Than
Yeah.
He's actually a psychopath and serial killer, but had a life outside of killing people.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to start this guy in the World Cup.
Yeah, you do. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, we've got
Where
months
do
to
you-
decide
where
where
are
he
you
plays,
playing?
but
Didn't you guys think prior to Ali getting the red card, and which we can dig into, I'm sure, in a little bit here if we want to. It's only half an
I think
hour.
we'll get to it. I know exactly.
There was like that left side was really interesting and really promising. Like they were creating a lot of stuff. They were looking dangerous, and you had Ali who was pulling really wide, creating that
6 minutes,
pocket
though,
of
Dubs.
space.
It's only 6 minutes.
Well, it was a very
What is 6
exciting
minutes?
6 minutes. There was lots of promise.
I've heard many
within it.
times. What a 6 minutes.
That's right. You wish 6
You're
minutes.
Yeah,
lucky
that's true.
6 minutes.
Yeah.
6 minutes is
think
like
we
an
did
hour.
dinner.
for you.
With Richie pulling inside and finding that half space, right? I mean, so you look forward, and whether that's Fonzie or whether it's Richie or whomever, like with Ali there. And I just want to say about that, and we'll come back to Richie because I don't think we can talk enough about Richie and what he does for this team. But when you think about Ismael Kone and the arc that he's been on and the challenges that he's had to deal with publicly, but also internally, I also turned to you, Sharms, in the press box when Ali is he's beside himself. He's incredulous. He cannot believe that he's been sent off. And who's got his arm around him but Kone? So you think like these two young guys, and it's this team adapting, maturing, professional performance, a really incredible defensive performance, I think, for the team, but like the individuals in there. And then even Jesse Marsh was asked about the performance of their skipper in Stefan Eustáquio, and he pivoted to talk about Ismael Kone and everything that he did as like a comprehensive performance for the team. And it was Ismael with his arm around Ali. And you just think like it's just a short time ago where we were kind of indicting him and condemning him for his behavior and his petulance, and he needs to really get a hold of himself. And then like the way that he's kind of come along and getting players, being an important, relied upon player at Sassuolo, and then really remarkable performances with the national team. But it's really cool to see. But Richie, player of the match, created the most chances with 2 big chances that he created, most fouled in the match, which is to nobody's surprise, 6 times. And he also won the most duels. He won 11. And you could go down the line with all of his defensive contributions in addition to like the things that he created going forward, but a real complete performance by Richie.
We were sitting beside our boy.
Getting the armband as well, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
He's a
that was
leader.
great to see.
He's had a TSC, right, as well. He's definitely a leader.
We
We were sitting beside our boy Armin Badakian from One Soccer, and he brought our attention to it at first, and he was incredulous. It was brilliant. That move when Richie shoved the guy from behind, but in the same motion, raised his hands up and said, "Whoa!" It was just the epitome of shithousery and the dark arts. It was brilliant.
He's audacious, eh?
Yeah.
He's audacious.
Like,
Yeah.
he's got it down to a fine art.
He had 2 consecutive moves where he pushed a player away and then gestured with that right arm to the assistant referee and then entered into another confrontation, 2-arm shove, and turned it into a, "What are you doing, referee? Both arms open." It was incredible to watch. Yeah.
But we shouldn't let that detract from his technical ability, right? And I think it's easy to just look at this sideshow freak, right? But he's a really good footballer. And like you said, the chances created, he's showing that now. I mean, you can definitely see a scenario with him and Fonzie, and I was dismissing this for the longest time. You got to play Fonzie at left back. You have to. And I'm still probably leaning there, but you definitely see that narrative where you have Laryea Fonzie left-hand side of
I
Tan.
brought and Sharms, I brought this up about winning and who are winners, and not saying Alphonso Davies isn't a winner. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Canada has been winning with certain players on the pitch, and it doesn't, for me if I'm an observer or someone who's making a lineup, sometimes I'm going with the guys that brought me to the dance, right? You leave with who brought you to the dance.
I totally get that, but there's no way Alphonso Davies isn't.
I know.
Match if he's healthy. Listen, I had to go real soon, but we do need to talk about the red card. It's really important. So if you guys want to continue for a few minutes, I can give you 2 more minutes.
Yeah.
Again, something I say often.
Yeah, that's more realistic than the 6.
But the red card it's amazing how polarizing it is, right? You go to Twitter and it's so divisive. Everyone's 100% sure one way or the other, but it's kind of, I saw it kind of 50-50 split on my timeline. Dubs and I watched it over and over again. For us, it's a clear red card. Yeah, it's early in the game, and perhaps that's the reason why you could say, okay, referee, take control, pull the guys in, have a little chat. But there was contact. Okay, it wasn't where the Ecuadorian was embellishing, and he did embellish. I understand, and I hate that shit. But there was contact. The boot was up around shoulder height. It was reckless. That is a red card. Jimmy, I didn't see the broadcast. We saw you. You look great, by the way, in your female group. Was that a silk shirt, by the way?
Yes, it was actually Egyptian cotton.
Oh, sorry. Egyptian cotton. You freaking
he stole it from the hotel bed and had it tailored.
It was beautiful,
but
in
the spare suitcase that the guy gave him.
Yeah, exactly. It was in it.
I'll jump. But I'll just tee it up for you, Jimmy. Your thoughts, and then you guys can go on as long as you want. But I got to go. Okay, I'm sorry, but we'll see you guys later.
Okay. Later. It for me, it wasn't a red card. There's no chance. No chance.
Oh, I took Jimmy out. Sorry, Jimmy.
Perfect. I'm still here.
No,
go ahead, Jimmy. Sorry.
It wasn't a red card. Not at all. As the ball gets played back to the keeper's just trying to dink it over top, and you could see that Ali Ahmed, he's got his eyes on the ball, and as he's turning, he's looking to bring it down out of the air. Okay. And as it comes, it's minimal contact, minimal under the arm, just towards the back, just does a little tap. There was nothing malicious in it whatsoever. The player makes a meal of it, holding his throat, rolling around like an idiot. The referee right away, I think he was too quick to draw that card. And I think if he actually took his time with the situation and walked over, spoke to the referee's assistant, looked at the situation, saw the player, because the player was up and running like a deer after 2 seconds anyways. It wouldn't have been a red card. It's not like Ali Ahmed's actually looked at the player and actually put his studs into his chest. He was trying to bring the ball down. And for me, I think if there was VAR, the VAR would have actually probably said to the referee, come have a look at this and make a decision after you see this, because there's minimal contact. The player didn't try to injure or harm the other player. His eyes are on the ball. He's trying to bring the ball out of the air, and he makes a little bit of contact. But it definitely, for me, was not a red card. A yellow card, okay, for sure, but red, no. I think that was way too harsh for the situation.
I will disagree. I think that everything that you said is correct. And as with most things, both things or two things can be true. So I think for you saying he's looking up over his head, he's trying to bring the ball down, there's no intent, there's no malice. When you're judging a foul, you're not bringing intent into it. I think the fact that it's early on.
You do bring intent. Yes, you do. You bring intent. Yeah.
You're looking at the foul, Jimmy, and it was reckless and it was careless, and his foot and his studs exposed should never be up that high. So to the letter of the law, that was a red. Of course, you have to bring it in into all the context around it, and that might factor in. But first and foremost, it's about the actual action. And that could be classified as a red. And then when you bring everything else into it, I fully agree with you that if they had VAR, like it would have been rescinded. Like that was wrong. And it was rash. It was too early, I think, in my opinion. But you drop that into any moment in a match, that could be a red. And I don't think you could argue with it. But I really, really do agree with you that he went to his pocket too quick, went to that red card. He should have, if he thought for a second it was a red, then he should have had the conversation with the assistant referee. But like, that's going to be a good learning moment for Ali Ahmed as well, right? Yeah. It's like, you have to have your wits about you. You have to understand where you are on the pitch. You have to. So whether it's accidental or not, your studs and your leg up that high. And I also disagree with the fact that you said it was a graze. Didn't get him in the throat, didn't get him in the chest, but he connected like with his lat, like underneath his armpit, with his studs exposed. So like it could be argued that that was a red. So I disagree with the fact that he got sent off. But if you look at that just within the context of what could be a red, that could be the definition of it. So it's nuanced as usual, right?
No, but I'm wondering, had he pulled the card out and given a yellow, would that have satisfied people who thought it could have been a red? Would you have said that's absolutely fair, like it was always going to be a foul, but would that have satisfied the people who went, like, was there enough to give him a yellow or two? You know what I mean? Like, it was it over the line where people would say, oh, that yellow's fine, and that's where it should stay?
If he'd been given a yellow, we wouldn't be talking. Nobody would have mentioned it after the fact. Right. Yellow card, move along, play the rest of the match. And so that's what should have happened.
I think that's where it's at. Wasn't a straight red. I think people would have been happy or fine with the yellow, which shows you that it wasn't malicious. It wasn't a bad challenge.
Can we talk about? Sorry, Jimmy. Can we talk about? You were on the call last night at the studio, but Dubs, you and Sharms were actually at the match, and it was sold out. What was the atmosphere? Because our friend Dave DeCola from our supporters group put out the Simpsons with Chile versus I think it's Portugal, and they're just like kicking the ball back and forth. Yeah.
Mexico and Portugal.
Yeah.
Mariaga.
How was the vibe before the red? But like, what was the vibe like at the match with 20-some thousand people filling it up, and probably the first time in a while that it's been filled up like that?
It took people a long time to file into BMO.
I heard that
becoming an issue, but it was heavily favoring Ecuador in terms of the people who are out. So that's good. But like, obviously you had more red jerseys in there. You had the Voyager section, which was loud. But it was a good atmosphere for the match for sure.
And were you press box Dubs? Were you TSN Dubs? Or were you Footy Prime Dubs last night in our Dexter psychopath?
Yeah, I was telling Sharms that even though I was just on the one Guinness, I met Carrie and DDC, Claudio's brother, Anthony, and like 5 other people named Anthony down at the Briggs and Head.
All from Woodbridge.
And then didn't get my food because I had to like rush over to the stadium. No, I was just, I don't know, regular Dubs. Met a lot of people, and it was good to see familiar faces. But no, it was kind of boring, I think.
Oh, no.
Not the match, but like the press box is usually pretty dull, right?
Yes. No cheering, but good curry. You said you and Sharms were talking about the food.
Right, some good vegan fare. But no, it was good. I bumped into Erin McLeod, who's going to be on the NSL panel. She was going to the Puma box, so I bumped into Erin as I came in. Bumped into Stevie Caldwell. I met his son, and then we were having a chat, going back up into the elevator. Talked to Luke for a bit too, and just got to see everybody who's part of that community around Canadian soccer. So that's good to see. But I felt like really early on, I think a lot of the people who were waiting to get into the stadium were pro-Canada, because it seemed like it was very pro-Ecuador at the beginning, and especially when that red card was given.
Anything that stood out to you, Jimmy, last night, takeaways? before we say goodbye to each other?
No, I just think it was an overall great performance from this Canadian side. I think we're watching them mature in front of our eyes. Against Guatemala, we saw a different team that was playing a man down than what we saw last night, which shows that this team is heading in the right direction. It was a professional performance, and I think there was a lot of positives to take away from this match.
And one of the positives that we haven't mentioned was Jonathan David. I think all the work that he did off the ball, all the ground cover, especially a player down, but his quality on the ball, his leadership, even though he didn't really generate a whole lot going forward, but you're a player down. I think that's good for him, the individual, the professional, to put in a really solid performance like that.